Well, in the last lecture we came across multi-programming, multi-threading, multitasking and multiprocessing. Also we have seen the concurrent execution versus parallel execution. Today we'll see the recap of previous lecture for around for some time. Then we'll move on to the current day's lecture. So multitasking, the situation of loading two or more tasks in the main memory so that the CPU switches back and forth between the tasks for execution. This situation is said to be multitasking. Basically, multitasking can be done at two levels. One is at the process level, another is at the thread level. If the multitasking has been done at the process level, then it is said to be multi-programming. If the multitasking was done at the thread level, then it is said to be multi-threading. So you just go through the definition carefully. The situation of loading two or more tasks in the main memory so that the CPU switches back and forth. That means for some time task 1 will be executed, then after some time the task 1 will be the status of the task 1 will be saved and task 2 will be taken up by the CPU. Then task 2 will be executed for some time, and if any interrupt or event occurred, then the CPU may stop the current execution of the task 2. Then it will save the status and it will pick up the task 1 and starts executing from where it stopped the execution. So this is the way switching of the tasks by the CPU takes place. This way of switching is also said to be context switching. Basically, the context switching is considered as the heavyweight process. So that means if the multitasking was done at the process level, then the context switching takes place so that the situation of multi-programming is considered as the heavyweight process. And if the same thing was done at the thread level, then it's said to be multi-threading and also considered as a lightweight process. Generally, multitasking can be done at the single user level or multi-user levels. That means each user can start their own tasks and can switch between the users, and each user can each user can start their own tasks. The task may be at the process level or maybe at the thread level. So in this way, once you understand multitasking, then it is very easy to remember what is meant by multi-programming and multi-threading. That means multitasking which was happened at the process level, then it is multi-programming. Multitasking, if it was done at the thread level, then it should be multi-threading. So when multi-programming was happened, that is at the process level, then who is responsible for scheduling the switching of the back and forth of the tasks? The responsibility was given to CPU. So hence in multi-programming, CPU scheduling will come into the picture. Where in case of multi-threading, it will not be done by the CPU. However, there will be a thread scheduler available. In case of JVM, in case of Java, JVM is one who will schedule the threads. But at the level of operating system, when the multi-programming or multitasking is going to take place at the process level, then who is responsible for shifting of these tasks? That is CPU. That is CPU will take care of the scheduling of these tasks. At the thread level, thread scheduler will take care of the shifting of threads or execution of the threads. So thread is a small program that will execute under process address space or process memory. So recall the last lecture. I have told you one example, that is electrician example. That means an electrician I have called upon and asked to repair my ceiling fan, and he told that to repair the fan, it will be the amount to be spent for that is 200 rupees. So I agreed upon and I have given the contract. So the electrician brought his assistants to help him in doing the repairing process. So his assistants will receive the amount from the electrician, and electrician will receive the amount from me, that is 200 rupees. So it is the discretionary of the electrician to provide the amount to his assistants based upon their skill set or the work they have done. Also, we have considered these assistants as the threads, because these threads will work under the control of the electrician. So if only electrician is there to repair the fan, then it is said to be single thread of control, because only one thread exists in this particular process. Or we can say this single thread of control is also said to be main thread. So main thread is one who is responsible for controlling the child threads. So once the child threads complete the that is, main thread will assign the work to the child threads, and child threads may complete the work and will submit the work back to the main thread. Once the child thread completes the work, then only main thread will complete the work. So when this is the way how the process and the thread differentiates. So this process means the whole part of repairing the fan, and thread is one that who is under the control of the main thread, which is called here, who is here, it is electrician. Assume that at the same time I have called upon a carpenter to repair an almirah in my home, and I have decided on a contract that 300 rupees to be spent to repair that particular cardboard. So carpenter may also bring his own assistants to repair the cardboard or to repair the almirah. So now here in my home, two works are going on. One is repairing of the fan and another is repairing of the cardboard. Repairing of the almirah. So here two processes are going simultaneously in my home. So just you correlate with the computer terminology. In a computer, there may exist two or more processes. That means one may be MS Word opened, and another may be a music player which is opened and running. So that means here to MS Word is one application or one process which is going on, and another is music player at the background, or you may minimize it or you may run it openly. So that particular music player will also go on in hand. And one thing you remember, that these two processes will be working under the control of CPU, and CPU sometimes based upon your request, that is if you want to change the song because you have bored with one song which is already getting in the music player, then you may change the song. So for that you may pick up the music player which is the which is coming into the forefront. So thereby what will happen here, that means the CPU is switching from the MS Word where you are typing your assignment or homework to music player. That means the CPU cycles now will be shifted to the music player, and the music player will come into the picture. There you go for changing of the song, and you may minimize it and may maximize the MS Word. So now MS Word is coming into the picture. That means here the CPU is switching back and forth between the tasks, or here task which is happening at the process level, that is MS Word and music player, based upon the event that you have given. So this is the way how the context switching takes place. So in the same way, I am the one who is at home. Now what I will do is I will monitor the process of repairing the fan. When I'm felt that okay, the process is going fine, then I may shift to the carpenter, and I may look for the carpenter's work. So this is the way how can I can shift from one process to other process, and I can monitor these two processes. And one thing you remember, I have nothing to do with the assistants who came along with the electrician or carpenter. I am only responsible to, I am only in the top view of viewing at the carpenter and electrician, not to their assistant. So here what I can do is I can only schedule that okay, whether this is my choice, that whether the carpenter and electrician can come at the same time to do their works, or I may also schedule that okay, electrician, you come in the morning and I may attend the office and I will come back, so that a carpenter may attend may come and work. So this is the way I can schedule them. But how the assistants will be scheduled? This assistants will be basically working under the control of main electrician, and the assistants of the carpenter will work under the control of a carpenter. It is the responsibility of the carpenter and electrician to schedule their assistants. So that means if the multi-programming, in the case of multi-programming, if the process is going to be handled by the is to be switched back and forth or to be scheduled, then it will be handled by the CPU. Where in case of threading, multi-threading, like scheduling the assistants, okay, instructing the assistants that okay, you bring this screwdriver and you bring this winding, or you bring the particular screw or etc. by the carpenter. So these kind of controls will be given by the main thread. So the main thread is responsible for giving these particular controls. So that reason here CPU is nothing to do with anything. Here the responsibility of the thread scheduler will come into the picture to schedule the threads. So in this way you have to be you have to distinguish the responsibility of the CPU and responsibility of the thread. CPU responsibility is between the to schedule the programs or jobs or thread or tasks which is loaded into the main memory. But thread scheduler responsibility is to schedule the threads which are under the control of a process. So for that reason we are going for understanding of the thread scheduler. Here in case of Java programming, JVM is responsible for for handling these particular schedules. Okay, this is the way how the you have to differentiate between the multi-programming and multi-threading. And another beautiful example of multi-threading is like this. For example, you have downloaded a software and trying to install. So when you are installing at a time, that means at a time means simultaneously, two or more things will be happening on your screen. One may be like this, copying of the files by the installation application into your specified folder, maybe C drive or D drive. Another is updating the registry values. Third one is showing the progress bar. Here three activities are happening simultaneously. One is copying of the files. Second one is updating the registry values, that is maybe your Windows registry or maybe any other. So registry values and creating of icons, these kind of things. Then next one is showing of the progress. That means how far the installation was happened. That means it will show the progress bar and it will show you that how far the installation was happened. So this is the way how three activities are happening in one program, which is one process that is called installation process. So that means here installation process is a superior one. The installation process handling application maybe is with some thread scheduler who is responsible for synchronizing the copying of the content, showing of the progress bar, updating the registry values, and creating the icons on the desktop. So this is the way how the multi-threading you have to realize. So I hope by this time you have got the difference between what is multi-programming, multi-threading, and multitasking. Why on the other hand, multi-processing is deals with the execution of a task by one or more processors at the same time. So don't get confused between the multi-processing and multi-programming. So if the multitasking is done at the process level, then multi-programming. If the multitasking is done at the thread level, then it is multi-threading. Multi-processing is nothing but execution of a task by one or more processors at same time. This is what is called multiprocessing. Next we'll move on to the concurrency versus parallelism. Some students have expressed a doubt on this concurrency versus parallelism. Basically concurrency means multiple tasks which start run and complete in overlapping time periods in no specific order. Where in case of parallelism is when multiple tasks or several part of a unique task literally run at the same time. That is, especially for this we require multi-core processors. Especially when the single core processor is there, we can achieve concurrency but not parallelism. That you must remember first. Assume that you are having a quad core processor and 4 tasks. So each task can be assigned to one core, so that each core will do its own task, own execution, so that one core will not disturb the other core. At the same time, these tasks will not share any common resource. So if you look at in this diagram, in parallelism, task 1, task 2 is there. This task 1 is submitted on one core, and this task 2 is submitted on another core. So this task 1 is nothing to do with task 2, and task 2 is nothing to do with task 1. This task 1 and task 2 will execute in its entirety. That means they won't share any common thing. And this task 1 is also independent and will execute on a core on which no other task is going to be executed. A dedicated core is assigned so that the task will execute on that core. In the same time, task 2 also, it is where a dedicated core was assigned in which the task 2 will execute. So in order to go for this parallelism, we need to have a multi-core CPU system. But in case of concurrency, it is not like that. Assume that the installation application. Once the installation of a software is going on, the first thing is identifying of the directory of the software which is already available in the specified drive or not. That will be done first. Once it is over, the next activity is to copy the content or copy the files into that particular folder. Once the copying of the files into the folder is over, another activity is like this, which is going to update the registry values. During this particular process, the next activity after copying the content, it may go for creating of icons on the desktop. So once this particular creating of the icons on the desktop is over, your installation application or installation of the software will be over. That means when this particular first task is somewhat idle, the second task starts executing, and when the second task is idle, and the first task will start executing in an overlapped way. Here there is no overlapping. These are dedicated. In case of parallelism, task 1 and task 2 are dedicated. There is no overlapping of the time, the overlapping of the things. So this task 1 is assigned to a dedicated core, and task 2 is assigned to a dedicated core. But in case of here concurrency, even though a single core is there, even though a single core processor is there, but the overlapping of time can be taken place. It is just like just to recall the electrician example. Electrician asked one of his assistant to bring a screwdriver. Unless until that person brings the screwdriver, second person cannot remove the fan. That means the first person should be when the first assistant is doing the task, obviously the rest of the two persons, that is main electrician and the another assistant, may be idle at the time. So when the task 1 is executing, task 2 may not start. When the task 2 is executing, task 1 may do some other task, and when the task 2 is idle at this time, task 1 may have some other thing to be executed. So like this, that means whenever this first assistant brings the screwdriver back, the second assistant will go for removing of the fan or doing of some other activity related to this with the screwdriver. I hope by this time you come to know the what is meant by concurrency and parallelism. In concurrency, overlapping of time will be happen. The execution of the activities by overlapping time is possible, And concurrency can also be achieved on a single processor, where in case of parallelism, the execution of the tasks is nothing to do with, execution of a task is nothing to do with another task which are executing parallelly, and these tasks are assigned to a dedicated cores, so that one core execution will not disturb the other core execution. So this is what is called parallelism. The parallelism can be achieved when you don't have any common things to do with task 1 and task 2. So by in case of concurrency, some part of the task 1 may be executed, and in the execution of the task 1, from the middle, task 2 may start. Once the task 2 is over, then task 3 can be done. So this is the way the arranging of the execution of the activities in a overlapped fashion is that you can see in the concurrency. So I will give you one more example to understand the concurrency better. Assume that you are a bachelor and staying at a room, and you are, after completion of the college, you are supposed to go to your room and want to cook on yourself. At the same time, you want to do assignment. Here you are the only single processor available who has to do the tasks. First, what you do is you will cut the vegetables and prepare the will prepare for the cooking of curry. At the same time, you may receive the phone call from your friend and ask for the assignment to be done. And when the cooking of the curry is going on, you may find out the white papers or A4 sheets and try to write the assignment. Once you find that okay, 5 minutes were over, just will go for the status of the cooking of the curry. Then you go for the cooking of the curry. Then you will come back. Once this particular task is over, then you go for the writing of the complete assignment. Once the assignment is over, then you will go for preparing of other things like roti or something. Then you go for eating of your food. So this is, see here, just to observe the sequence. Here, two things were happening parallelly. Concurrently. We cannot say it is parallelly. It is concurrently. That means here, once what you are doing is you are cutting the vegetables, and you are receiving the phone call from your friend. Once the cutting of the vegetables is over, then you go for preparing of the cooking of the vegetables. Then at the same time, you are doing the assignment by keeping in mind that some cooking is going to take place. So that means this is the shifting of the tasks within in an overlapped time. But here the shifting of the task in an overlapped time was done by yourself, that who is the single processor here. But in case of parallelism is nothing but at your room, 2 or 3 members are staying, and each one has taken his own responsibility to do the task. One is maybe preparing the food, another may be writing assignment, another may be doing some other activity. So the one is nothing to do with another thing. So just this is what the difference between the concurrency and parallelism. I hope by this time you might have got the difference between what is meant by concurrency and parallelism. The multi-threading enables you to write efficient programs which will use the CPU in an efficient manner. That means multi-threading enables you to write efficient programs that make maximum use of the CPU by reducing the idle time of this CPU. That means consider this: when the programs are loaded into the main memory, the CPU and wait programs are loaded into the main memory and wait for CPU. That means assume that you are supposed to perform some assignments which are before you, and you are the processor here. And that means if the assignments are before you, means that is not the mean that you will do all the assignments. So you will pick up one assignment at one time and you will do that. And in middle, if you feel that okay, tomorrow this second assignment need to be submitted, then you stop doing first assignment and you go for the second assignment. That means here if the assignments are there before you, means it is not guaranteed that you will pick one. It is not guaranteed that you will pick any one of the assignment and will do. So in the same way, here also, when the programs are loaded into the memory, means it is not guaranteed that CPU will always pick one program and will do it. When CPU is free, then it will pick up the program and will start executing. That means here the CPU cycles should be free to pick up the particular program and to execute. So wasting of the CPU cycles is said to be simply passing of the CPU cycles without doing anything is said to be idle. Or we can say that means simply wasting of the CPU cycles. It's usually if you waste the CPU cycles, of no use. Instead you are supposed to, if you can execute one program or any other program or half of the program, something you can execute without wasting the CPU cycles. In the same way, the multi-threaded programming will give you writing, will make you write an efficient program to minimize the CPU idle time. When the CPU idle time is minimized, obviously the program efficiency increases. That means if you might have done the assignments without wasting the time, then obviously your efficiency increases. In the same way, here also multi-threading. So in this way, multi-threading enables you to write very efficient programs that maximize the CPU that maximize the CPU or maximize the use of the CPU by reducing the idle time of the CPU. So in general, in a multi-threading program, threads have following properties. A thread begin execution at a predefined well-known location. So we all know that any program will start executing from the main method. In the same way, the thread execution will also starts from the main method. For one of the threads in the program, the location is main method. Okay. For the rest of the threads, it is a particular location. The programmer decides on when the code is written. That means always the main thread of control is your main method only. In the main method only, you will write at what time which thread to be started and which thread to be ended, and how many threads to be created and how many threads to be started. So these are the things is was decided by the main method. So always here, let you recall the electrician example. Always the control of execution will start from the electrician only, and the electrician will decide at what time which assistant to be called and which assistant to be given work. Like that, how many assistants are required, that will be decided by the electrician only. Okay. So next is a thread executes code in an ordered predefined sequence. Okay. So any thread, whatever the thread may be. So according to the orders received by in the case of this electrician example, the assistants will execute or will perform their tasks in an ordered way and in a predefined sequence that is instructed by the main electrician. So a thread executes its code independently of another threads. So when an assistant is trying to bring the screwdriver, means he will only bring the screwdriver, that's all. It is nothing to do with any other thread. So in the same way, a thread executes its code independently of the other threads. The thread appears to have certain degree of simultaneous execution. That means certain degree means once he brings the screwdriver, another person will do other task. So once he do other task, in the meanwhile he may go for preparing of new winding. So this is the way how the degree of simultaneous execution takes place among the threads. So next we will see the thread models. Before moving on to the thread models, let us recall the process and the functionality of the process, or we can say various states of the process that we have studied in the operating system. Like a process have certain states, that is ready state, running state, suspended state, waiting state, resumed state, this kind of things. So the same, whatever the states applicable for the process is also applicable for the threads. So threads exist in several states. A thread can be in running, it can be ready to run as soon as it gets the CPU. A running thread can be suspended, which temporarily suspend its activity, or a suspended thread can be resumed by allowing it to pick up from where it was left, or a thread can be blocked or at any time a thread can be terminated, which halts its execution immediately. So thereby, once a thread is terminated, it cannot start again. That you are supposed to remember. In the same way, once the program execution is ended, then you cannot start again. You are supposed to manually do it by repeating it, by rerunning the program. So see, whatever the process states available for the process, the same states you can also think of for the threads. So anyhow, we'll see the thread states, availability of the in which state the thread will perform what kind of activity. These kind of things we'll see in detail in the next lectures. However, here in this slide you can see there are typically two threading models supported by the operating system. Here this is with respect to the operating system they are saying it is. Okay. Previously we have seen the multi-threading with respect to the thread scheduler. See, even though the thread scheduler do the task or the operating system do the task, the modeling is common. The modeling of this thing is common. Here the supported by operating system means it may be Unix operating system or maybe a SolarSys operating system. You know, the SolarSys operating system is one which was completely written using Java programming. It supports perfect it is a best example of multi-threaded operating system. So like this here whatever the tasks are whatever the things I am discussing is with respect to the operating system. The same thing can also be applicable for the thread schedulers. Okay, so don't confuse between the operating system and thread scheduler. Both are whatever I am discussing, the same thing can also be applicable for the thread scheduler, not for the operating system but also for the thread scheduler. So there are typically two threading models available. One is cooperative threading model, another is preemptive threading model, and cooperative threading model is also said to be non-preemptive threading model, which means that once you submit the job to do, you cannot take it back. So we'll see in detail what is cooperative threading model. In a cooperative system, a thread retains control of the processor until it decides to give it up. That means that particular task may be given up or may not be given up. That you cannot decide it. Okay, that means once you have submitted the task to the processor, then the task cannot be taken out. So basically the supporting operating systems are Windows 3.x, SolarSys, Mac OS. So these kind of operating systems in the early stages used to support cooperative threading model. But the various threads have to cooperate with each other. If not, some of them will be starving. That means the output of one thread may be useful for the useful as the input to another thread. So once the first thread is not at all executing, obviously second thread has to wait for long time. That means it is continuously in waiting of the first thread to complete, and the first thread is never completed. So that means here the first thread is always busy in executing, but the second thread is waiting for first thread that okay, the first thread will execute and its output will be helpful for me to take the tag as input and will go for execution of my statements, but it won't happen. So this is the situation is called starving. That means starving in the sense waiting for some output or input from the external thing, but that particular things are not happening. So unless until that won't happen, the execution will not start. So this kind of situation is said to be starving. The continuous starving will lead to deadlock. Okay. So scheduling in most cooperative systems is done strictly by priority levels. When the current thread gives up the control, the highest priority waiting thread gets the control. So this is what the cooperative threading model works. In case of the preemptive threading model, in a preemptive system, some sort of timer is used by the operating system itself to cause the context swap. So the supporting operating systems are like this: Windows 9X, that is 95, 90, 98, etc. Windows XP, Windows NT, and SolarSys. You look at previously also SolarSys is there. This here also SolarSys is there. That don't get confused. Previous SolarSys are the early Solaris, which was written, but latest Solaris is not like that. It will support preemptive threading. When the timer ticks, the operating system can abruptly take control away from the running thread and gives the control to the another thread. So this is, in this way it will maintain the time slicing. It is just like, just you recall your cooking of food at your room. So you are making the time slicing, that is some for 5 minutes you will go for cooking of the curry or something, then you will go for the dedication of the, writing of assignment, then you come back, this kind of switching. So this is also to be time sliced manner. To get concurrency, the OS must do thread scheduling. Here sometimes if the OS do the thread scheduling, it is well and good, but if you look at the programming languages like Java programming, here JVM will act as a thread scheduler, because JVM will take the responsibility to schedule the Java based threads. Preemptive systems are less efficient than the cooperative ones because the thread management must be done by the operating system kernel. So but they are easier to program except their synchronization. So here in this preemptive threading, one more thing is, apart from thread management, one more thing you are supposed to focus on is synchronization. We will see what are the synchronization things in the later of this particular talk. So when threads are going to execute, they will execute independently. We have seen previously that threads execute its code independently of other threads. So that means one thread is nothing, basically in a plain way, basically one thread is nothing to do with another thread. They will execute on its own. But one thing you remember, sometimes the output given by one thread may be useful to the second thread which is waiting for to execute. So in such a cases some synchronization is required to maintain that. So that is the reason, because the multi-threading introduces an asynchronous behavior in the program execution. There is a way, there must be a way to enforce some synchronization. So we are going to see some synchronization aspects, that is synchronization in the sense concurrent access to shared data may result in data inconsistency sometimes. Maintaining the data inconsistency require mechanism to ensure the orderly execution of the cooperating processes. That is, which thread to be executed first, then which thread to be executed next, whether the sequence of execution of the threads. So this is what is called orderly execution. So when do we need synchronization? When two or more processes or threads work on the same data simultaneously. That means if there is a same data, if there is a same resource which is shared by two or more threads, then we need synchronization. Just to recall the orchestra problem, here all the music troops, all the musicians in the background will share the same song. That means once the singer sings the song, depending upon the singer's singing of the song, at what level she is, and at he or she is, and at what place he or she is, and what type of music they have to play. Based upon that, the musicians has to do their task. So this is what they call here shared data is there. When the shared data is there, and if two or more threads are at the multi-threading level, if two or more threads are working on the same data simultaneously, then we require synchronization. So the example, we'll see the example here. Two threads are trying to update the same shared variable simultaneously. The result is unpredictable. The result depending upon which of the two threads was at the last one who has changed the value. The competition of the threads for the variables is called race condition. So that means which thread has to change the shared data. So this particular that means this particular situation arises when two or more threads are sharing the same data. That means who has to change the data. This particular situation is said to be race condition, means which has to do the updation. Which thread has to do the updation. This is what we call race condition. The first thread is one who wins the race to update the variable, and who is the first thread who will win so that the shared variable will be updated. So this is what the problem situations when if there is no proper synchronization. So one is result may be unpredictable, maybe 2 or 3 threads may be in full competition to change the shared variable, and sometimes how to decide which thread should be eligible for updating the shared variable. So this situation you might have already studied in operating system, at the same time in databases also, how the databases or how the database management systems will maintain the concurrency. That means while updating the fields in the database tables, how the concurrency will be maintained, how the concurrency management is going to be maintained by the database softwares. At the same time in the operating system also, how if 2 or more processes are sharing the same resource, and how the scheduling should takes place. This kind of things we have seen in the operating system. You might have studied in the operating systems and databases also. The same concept at the thread level, we are again revisiting those concepts, such as classical synchronization problems, such as mutual exclusion. Mutual exclusion means we have seen so far that 2 or more threads are sharing the common resource. Assume that this common resource you are going to kept in a box called a section, and you are feeling that this common resource is very crucial, and the updation of the common resource or impact of the updation of the common resource will affect the threads who are seeking for the particular common variable. So that is the reason we are going to keep it in one particular section. We are calling it as a critical section. So that means critical section in the sense, this particular data, changing of the data or impact of changing of the data, value of the particular data is so critical, so that it will affect the waiting threads. So that is the reason we are calling it as a critical section. Here mutual exclusion in the sense, we are allowing only one thread or here only one process execute a piece of code in the critical section at any time. That means we are making a box that it is a section where important shared data is available, and you are allowing only one thread to change the particular variable or shared variable. This is what the mean called mutual exclusion. Only one process executes a piece of code in the critical section at any time. The OS example is access to shared resources, example a printer. For example, you consider there in department there exist two printers, and many computers are attached to the printer. So here printer is a shared resource, but who has to access the shared resource? So this is what they call, only one computer is allowed to give the print command to the printer. This is what they call critical section. That means this is what they call critical section. Here in critical section the shared resource is available, and you are going to give the print commands in a mutually exclusive manner. Mutually exclusive manner means only one computer is allowed to give the print command to the shared resource, which is called printer, which is available in the critical section. So this is what they call mutual exclusion means. Another thing is sequencing. A process waits for another process to finish executing some code, which is called, OS example is like this, waiting for an event, example list the directory command, suspends until there is some data in the to read from the file system. If there is no data in the file system, how the list command will be executed? So that reason the list command will always look for any data exists or not. If the data exists, then only it will print. So that means here a process wait for another process to finish execution some code. This is called sequencing. So I hope by this time you come to know what is meant by critical section. Critical section is a place or a set of or we can say critical section is an area where shared resources or shared data is available. Mutual exclusion is one that is a technique that you are allowing only one process or thread to execute that particular piece of code which is available in the critical section. That piece of code may be a common statement, or maybe a shared variable, or maybe any other thing which will share commonly among the remaining threads. Where in case of sequencing means a process is waiting for another process to finish executing some code. This is called sequencing. So here we'll come across the critical section. The critical section is a piece of code in which a process or thread access a common shared variable, okay, shared or global variable or global resource. But in case of mutual exclusion, which is also to be mutex, basically mutual exclusion, which is also to be mutex, algorithms are used to avoid the simultaneous use of common resources such as global variables. That means allowing only one thread or process to execute the piece of code in the critical section is said to be mutual exclusion. These mutual exclusion algorithms will decide how the threads has to enter into the critical section and execute the common resource. Another keyword that you use to listen in this process management or thread management is semaphore. Semaphore is a binary mutex and counting, maybe counting or maybe a binary mutex. Mutex means in the sense here mutual exclusion algorithm. So which is especially mutual exclusion or mutex algorithm are used to avoid the simultaneous use of common resource. For example, a thread is executing in the critical section, then I may use a binary semaphore, that means a simple variable like boolean variable, boolean s. When the thread is entering into the critical section, I may place s is equal to true. That means that the thread is executing in the critical section. When the thread is executed in the critical section, that means the piece of code, shared code, is executed by the thread 1, then it will reset the semaphore to false. That means the semaphore value to the false. That means that other thread who are waiting in queue will find out that okay, the first thread has executed in the critical section, so that the next waiting thread may enter into the critical section. So in this way the binary value will be managed so that the other threads who are in the waiting queue will come to know that whether the thread which is executing in the critical section has been completed or not. So this particular binary variable is also said to be a semaphore. Sometimes we may not use binary variable. Sometimes we may also use a variable which will lead to counting. That means this counting, in the sense I may declare int count is equal to 0 as a semaphore variable. This semaphore variable will count how many processes or how many threads are waiting for critical section. For example, I have the thread scheduler allowed a thread to enter into the critical section. Now initially the count is equal to 0. Now there exists 2 or 3 threads waiting in queue for completion of the thread 1 in the critical section. Now here 2 or 3 threads, for example, exactly we will count as 3. 3 threads are executing, 3 threads are waiting in the queue for completion of the thread 1 in the critical section. So here count will become 3. That means here the semaphore count will become 3. As the number of threads are in the waiting queue, the count value increments. So in this way the counting semaphores will be used. If the count value reaches some level, then the particular mutual exclusion algorithm will decide whether to allow the first thread to still continue in the critical section or to remove from the critical section and allow other thread to enter into the critical section. That will be decided by the mutual exclusion algorithms. Now here we are going to consider the binary semaphore or counting semaphore. And why can't we use this? If you observe carefully, this binary semaphore and counting semaphore are type of variables. So why can't we use these variables and conditions together? This is what the idea behind the monitors. So monitors are just like classes in which we are going to bind the variables and conditions or member functions together, so that it will be acting as a single unit. Both the semaphore variable and operations that to be done on the semaphore variables are included in a particular object or in particular class, so that any other thread will easily manipulate or will easily access the condition variables, so that mutexes will also be accessed. Because if you look at here, if the binary variable itself is a global variable, then it is very difficult to control the changing of this particular binary value from the true to false and false to true. In the same way, you cannot control these counting values. So when you have enclosed it within the within a class structure, obviously binary variable or binary semaphore variable or counting semaphore variable can be kept as private, and the member functions that will be acting on this binary variables can be made as public, so that any other thread who are waiting for the critical section will access this only the functions or condition variables condition variables that are going to be control this particular binary and counting semaphores. So this is what the semaphores and monitors concept is. However, we'll see in deep of this semaphores and monitor concept with respect to Java programming, C++, and Python in the next lecture.